up and you imagine winning. You always imagine being on top of the podium.
Michelle Kwan has grown up in front of our eyes. From child prodigy to exuberant teenager to beautiful young woman, in victory and in defeat, she has always shown the heart of a champion.
She's just amazing, just amazing. I just never underestimate that young lady. She's got incredible strength.
Michelle Kwan, now on Biography.
A great skater is someone who leaves the sport different and better because he or she was in it. And I think that's, Michelle has done that.
She is just phenomenal. She's been so steady and, been on top for over 10 years.
To be in the building when she skates really well is a magical thing. It's a very magical thing, and she's definitely one of the greats in my mind.
She is a legend in her sport, one of the most decorated skaters in history, yet the one prize she wants most has eluded her so far. The prize that she has dreamt of since she was a little girl.
I have a different perspective now than when I was 17. And I prefer this perspective because you enjoy it so much more. And you realize at the end of the day, it's not just about that 6 minutes that I was at the Olympics. It was the everyday hard work. It's the everyday pleasure that you get to be on the ice. So when people say, oh, you're staying in to win the Olympics, it's like, yeah, I'm staying in to try and win the Olympics. And I'm staying in just because I love the sport and just because it's what I want to do.
Michelle Kwan was a child phenom. By 1996, the precocious 15-year-old was already the world champion. With only 2 years to go until the '98 Olympics, Michelle was the early favorite for the Olympic gold. Michelle appeared to be one of those rarest of child stars who actually loved what she was doing. There was no pushy stage parent waiting in the wings.
My parents said, you could quit anytime you want. My parents really gave me a choice. The sessions used to be like $5.75. My dad said, here's $5.75. You can either go to the ice rink and pay for it, or you could go to, a liquor store and buy some candy. What do you want to do? And I took the money and went to the rink. And that made me realize that the money was coming out of my hand.
By 1996, it looked like Michelle would sail through the next 2 years and collect her Olympic gold. But the next year, things started to go wrong. She grew taller and had to cope with her changing body. To make matters worse, she was having trouble with her skates. In the same year, Michelle lost both her national and world titles to the new kid on the block, Tara Lipinski.
Why did I chicken out on you? I was working hard, but just the focus was very negative for me. I was very uptight.
With just a year to go until the Nagano Olympics, Michelle found herself in the role of the underdog. Then, just 2 months before the U.S. Nationals, which would double as the Olympic trials, X-rays revealed a stress fracture in her left foot. Just weeks before the biggest competition of her life, Michelle was in a cast.
They told me that I had to take at least 3 weeks off. And I said, I can't be in a cast. I have pain here, but isn't there something you could do? I've worked so many years to be at the Olympics, and this is my chance. And I can't practice, and I might not even qualify. So when I went to Philadelphia for the national championships, and it was like 2 weeks after I had gotten my cast off.
But Michelle could be at her most dangerous when people underestimated her.
when you least expect it. You think, oh, everybody's kind of counting her out, and then she'll just go out there and wow everybody. And we'll all be just sitting there going, I just can't believe what we just saw. She's just amazing. Just amazing. And I just never underestimate that young lady.
At the Olympic trials in Philadelphia, Michelle was untouchable.
Almost across the board.
And the next month at the Olympics, she again skated flawlessly. But Tara Lipinski, equally flawless, snatched the gold in a close decision.
It was hard because I had thought it was good enough to win. I came home with the silver. There was nothing I could do. I was really, really happy and thrilled about my performance. And some people think that, I lost the gold, but I felt more that I had won the silver.
Lipinski won by a very narrow margin, and many experts thought Michelle had deserved the gold. But her graciousness in the face of defeat won her even more admirers. Michelle chose not to turn pro. She would continue to compete against the best in the world. She was staying in for another 4 years. She would go for the Olympic gold again in Salt Lake City in 2002.
I was like, oh my God, you're going to go for another, that's going to be 4 years, it's going to be so long. But she's a great competitor, it's what she likes to do. I think that she would feel lost if she didn't have the competition. She lives by something that competition gives to her.
For the next 4 years, Michelle reigned atop her sport, winning an incredible 4 out of 4 national titles and 3 out of 4 world titles. She headed into the 2002 Games in her home country as the reigning world champion.
The pressure was overwhelming that entire week in Salt Lake prior to her actually taking the ice that night. And I think most people could not even have taken the ice if they had that amount of pressure on them.
Michelle made just one mistake, but her younger U.S. teammate Sarah Hughes was perfect. 4 years after getting silver in Nagano, she took bronze in Salt Lake City.
My heart really broke for Michelle. Just broke. I mean, I'm sitting in the crowd, and it was just so sad to see that happen again. I don't know how she can, pull herself back up and keep on competing after she's, gone through these heartbreaks. But I think all these heartbreaks are making her tougher.
At a stage of her career when most champions would retire from Olympic skating, Michelle chose to go on testing herself in the crucible of competition, placing herself under pressure to see what would come out.
I don't think that Michelle's skating is about medals. I think it's about challenging herself and scaring herself to death. I think she thrives on competition.
She's not afraid to take a chance, and she's not afraid to be a warrior.
1 year after Salt Lake City, Michelle came back to the Worlds and faced all challengers, and won again. No woman in the sport's modern era has more world titles than Michelle Kwan. But she continues to pursue the one dream that has eluded her so far. Michelle Kwan has always been a hard worker. It was a quality instilled in her by her parents, immigrants from China and Hong Kong, who stressed the importance of hard work. The Kwans came to the U.S. in the 1970s, seeking a better life for the next generation.
When my grandparents first came over, they worked at a restaurant for a couple of years before they made enough money to buy the property and start the restaurant. I remember talking to my father about when he came to the United States and he had absolutely nothing in his pocket. And having that sort of feeling going somewhere, being scared, but being ambitious and being a hard worker, you can get very far.
The Kwans settled in Southern California. Michelle's father worked for the phone company. Her mother stayed at home with her 3 children. Michelle and her siblings grew up speaking Cantonese and eating many of their meals at the family-owned Chinese restaurant. Skating started as a lark.
She gets on the ice and barely could even walk around the rink, but she loved it. Pretty soon, she was jumping around, doing spins. You can say that I was probably her first coach. I was the first one to kind of walk her around the rink a little bit, and didn't take long before she started showing me how to skate.
Michelle and her older sister Karen fell in love with figure skating right from the start.
We used to skate early in the morning, so we would just sleep in our tights and sleep in our little outfits and roll out of bed and get in the car. We'd wake up with each other and go to the rink with each other and spend the whole day with each other. And as we got older, we would even compete together. And when we skated together, it was just, I mean, it was so nice to have your best friend, you know, looking over and saying, oh, you're doing this wrong or you're doing that wrong, and why don't we, you know, have a competition. Let's do, see who can do the most double axels.
What started as a hobby quickly became a passion.
Michelle Kwan.
About 8 and 10. That's when we got really serious. We're like, we could be good at this. Yeah, we could go to the Olympics.
Once the girls got serious about competing, they rearranged their entire lives so they could train 4 or 5 hours a day.
We had a really hectic schedule. We would skate at 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd get at least 3 or 4 sessions in before going to school. It's like 9:45 in the morning. After school, we'd go straight to the rink. And then we would go to my grandparents' restaurant and have dinner and then rush home and then try to maybe catch 30 minutes of TV if we were lucky and then go to sleep. And then start all over again the next day.
More hours on the ice meant more coaches' fees and more ice time. It all added up. The Kwans didn't realize it at first, but they had started down a path that would eventually lead them into serious financial hardship.
My mom had to work a second job, and my dad was working, you know, a lot of hours during the day just to support us.
I have pictures of, you know, I've got holes in the tights, and I've got hand-me-downs of like a figure skating little outfit, and, you know, little rips and holes and gloves with holes. I mean, we were just lucky to be on the ice and have a coach. I just remember growing up, we would save every penny. We would have this 5-gallon jug. Every single penny had to go into that jug. And we'd buy groceries with that money. And I remember going to school, and all my friends' parents had really nice cars, and my dad had this really beat-up blue car, and he'd just drive us to school. And I'd be like, Dad, can you, like... And I didn't want to hurt his feelings because I knew that I wasn't very proud of the car, but I'd tell him, Dad, it's okay, you can just drop us off back here, it's all right, because all my friends are waiting out there.
As Karen and Michelle got better at skating, the costs skyrocketed. There were more lessons, costs of traveling to competitions and buying costumes and customized skates.
In the beginning, I thought I can afford it, but later on, then I get deeper, then I said, oh God, it's expensive.
At one point, there was not even enough money to buy a family Christmas tree.
So there was a contest at school, and if you can thread popcorn, the longest string of popcorn, you win a tree, a little miniature tree with little decorations. And I looked at the tree, I was like, oh, I have to win this, because my sister and I like begged my parents to get a Christmas tree. We never got one. So in 1 minute, I swear my thread of popcorn was like from here to like San Francisco. And I had my eyes set on that tree and won that Christmas tree, and I took it home. So after school, my dad came to pick me up, and I said, Dad, look. That was a very, very special Christmas, because we actually had presents under a Christmas tree.
Ultimately, Michelle's parents sold their home in upscale Palos Verdes to help finance the girls' skating.
So I think we better, you know, sell the house and then get a smaller house instead.
The day came when the Kwans could no longer keep up with the cost of keeping 2 daughters in elite skating, which soared to over $50,000 a year.
At that point, we were almost in debt.
I talked to Karen and I talked to Michelle too. At the same time, I said, you know what? If you want to skate, maybe you don't need the lesson for a while. I think you can practice what you learned in the past. Because I can't afford to pay for it no more. Because I don't want to, put the whole family in jeopardy.
Michelle Kwan's father wanted to support his daughter's dreams, but his bank balance had reached zero. He could no longer afford to pay for lessons.
That was tough because you go to a competition and there's your father standing next to the rink, next to the boards, and whereas other skaters had the coach.
That season, 10-year-old Michelle had her best regional competition ever, attracting the attention of a talent scout who offered both Kwan girls a scholarship to the world-famous Ice Castle International Training Center. But Ice Castle was in Lake Arrowhead, California, a 2.5-hour drive from the family home. So Michelle's father made a 5-hour round-trip commute each day to stay with the girls, while her mother remained in LA with the girls' older brother, Ron.
We just moved everything from our house into this little tiny cottage that had, a tiny little bathroom and a bunk bed and a big bed, all within one room, no kitchen or anything like that. It was really, really interesting being in a facility where people ate and slept figure skating.
The two sisters would now train with one of the most sought-after coaches in the world, Frank Carroll.
Working with Frank Carroll, this famous coach, it was such an amazing place to train. It was like a serious rink. It was there because people wanted to be the best. They wanted to go to the Olympics and they wanted to win. So that was like the atmosphere that I wanted.
I think she was about maybe 11 years old, and I was amazed. I mean, she had incredible spring in her legs, and she had great energy and vitality. She was awkward and, wore ill-fitted clothes and just had raw talent just coming out of her ears. And I mean, you'd have to be blind not to recognize it.
After 1 year under Carroll's tutelage, 11-year-old Michelle finished 9th in the 92 National Junior Championships.
This was a little kid who obviously had a lot of energy and was in a big hurry. Frank Carroll goes out of town for the weekend. Frank's her coach, he's her mentor, he's in charge of every part of her skating life. Michelle, not even 12 years old yet, tells her dad that Frank said it was okay, and they go and they take what is called the senior test. Michelle takes that test, but this all occurred while Frank was away for the weekend, and you can imagine his surprise when he returned and said, "You did what?"
And I came back and found out that she had done that, and I was absolutely stark raving furious. What is done, you have to move on. And I just said, well, Frank, you can't go back and change this. It's happened. Now what?
The next season, 12-year-old Michelle astonished the skating world by qualifying for the 1993 U.S. Senior Nationals and placing 6th. 1 year later, she was 2nd at Nationals. That summer, after her first Worlds, she went on tour with the older skaters, bringing her mom along as a chaperone.
I don't want to watch any skating when I'm on the road, but I would go out and watch her every night because I really loved that she had this soul.
After a summer on tour, Michelle finished 2nd at the 95 Nationals. The next month, she would skate a perfect program at Worlds, landing more triples than any other skater in the competition. And yet, she finished 4th.
I really looked young. I had no makeup. And that was like my statement. Because I didn't need makeup. It was all about my skating. And I landed all my jumps perfectly. And when I placed 4th, I knew that something that had to change. If I had skated my best and still ended up 4th, with no medal, I needed to do something. The judges were telling me something.
Michelle Kwan should have easily been in the medals and instead was 4th. And you can make a strong case that she should have won that World Championships. But instead what was happening was the judges were clearly saying she looks too young. She's a little jumper, and that's all she is.
Plan shifted into how do I make this little awkward, wonderfully talented girl into a majestic, beautiful skater.
So in the fall of 1995, Frank Carroll turned to choreographer Laurie Nickel to help him transform 15-year-old Michelle Kwan. Michelle was to portray Salome on the ice.
I sat Michelle down and explained who Salome was, that she was exactly her age, and how she was very provocative, and how she got the attention of the king, and how it ended up with the head of John the Baptist on a plate. And her eyes opened up and she said, "Wow, cool." And so I thought, great, this is wonderful. But then there was Danny Kwan.
I'm kind of old-fashioned, I just don't like to see my girl, have put the makeup on when she was 13, 14, 15 years old.
My dad's like, makeup? What are you talking about, makeup? You can't wear makeup. It'll get in your way when you're concentrating on a jump.
To portray this provocative role, she would have to look the part. She'd have to wear a costume that was provocative. She'd have to wear the makeup. And she was a very traditional Chinese little girl from a traditional Chinese family, and she never wore makeup. So it was a sell, because I had to say, look, Michelle's, very, very nice young girl, innocent girl. Girls her age, dance in New York in the ballet. They wear makeup. They portray all these parts. Doesn't mean anything. They're just doing an act.
It took a little while for my parents to sort of agree to it. After that, it was still no makeup off the ice.
But a new look was only part of the new image. More important was the transformation happening to Michelle herself.
I really learned a lot in learning how to feel the music as if you were performing with it, instead of just going out there and skating and jumping and skating and jumping and spinning. And so in '96, I came out and I had makeup and I was skating with Salome, and I really got into the character and really very dramatic, and people didn't recognize me. That was fun.
Skating the Salome program, Michelle claimed her first national title in 1996. She headed to Worlds determined to beat the favorite, Liu Chen.
At those Worlds, Liu Chen skated first and got a few sixes, and Michelle Kwan and Frank Carroll, her coach, were hidden away in one of their cubby holes, and they thought they couldn't hear anything. It was like soundproof, except they heard the 6 O's coming in from the public address system.
Michelle turned to me and said, "I don't think I can beat that." And I had about maybe 10 seconds to say something to her that would turn her around and make her believe, yes, you can beat that, and you can win this championship. And I said to her, yes, her second mark was 6 O's, and she's a wonderful artistic skater, but you didn't listen to the first mark. It was all 5 8s. I said, they've left that 5 9 for you. You know you can do this. You know you've beaten her this year already at Skate America. You know you're better. So believe you can do this.
Michelle got 6.0s of her own and took the title. At 15, she was now officially the best skater in the world. Overnight, 15-year-old Michelle Kwan had become world famous. Her life changed dramatically. She began earning thousands of dollars a night as a headliner on tour.
She is the 1996 World Champion, Michelle Kwan.
Young as she was, she suddenly found she was a role model to others. Yet somehow life at the top was harder than expected. Now her every move was scrutinized. She was growing up under a microscope.
I don't know if Michelle felt different after becoming world champion. It was the way other people perceived her and treated her that was so different.
Once you hit the top, it's like, where do I go but down? And I worried a lot, and I had a really hard time concentrating. My body changed a lot, like every girl does. And, in the media, it's like, oh, it's her body changing. She's falling on triple Lutz because of her weight, and, she's growing and she's turning into a woman. And I'm like, this is really embarrassing.
After becoming world champion, Michelle's father had signed a deal for his daughter with a company that made skates, but Michelle couldn't adjust to the new skates. She headed to the 1997 Nationals to defend her title, feeling uncertain.
Triple toe, double toe, and then a fall off the end of it.
I remember going backstage. I can see it right now in front of me, and and she was in the distance, and I looked over at her, and she looked at me, and her eyebrows, wrinkled, and she started crying, and so I went over to her and I just hugged her.
That night, Michelle left an opening for her rivals, and Tara Lipinski stepped through.
Tara Lipinski was just driven, and I'd never seen a little girl quite like that before. The minute I saw her on the ice, I could tell she was not intimidated about anything, and she was just there to show off.
A few weeks later in Lausanne, Switzerland, Michelle lost her world title to Tara Lipinski.
So now Tara Lipinski is the reigning national and world champ, stealing those titles from Michelle Kwan, who had them in '96. It's a real defined, two defined resumes, certainly. You've got Michelle Kwan and then Tara Lipinski, and now they're both converging, and they're just going to meet in this incredibly intense 1997-98 Olympic year.
Less than a year before the '98 Olympics, Michelle needed to reinvent herself again.
Coming off of the '97 season and all the trouble that Michelle had, she's just cruising along. I mean, everything, all systems go through that year, heading into the '98 Nationals. And boom, the word comes that she's got a stress fracture, and that she's got a cast on her leg, and that she's out.
Michelle is sort of a fish out of water if she's not on the ice. I think that when she had that cast on and she was told not to skate for 5 weeks, that she didn't know what to do with herself. I think knowing that the Olympic trials were coming up, you're in a cast and you can't get on the ice, it was sort of one of those nightmares that you have and you can't seem to wake yourself up out of it.
When she finally got off the cast, the first time she got out there and skated, she burst into tears and came back to me and said, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. I can't put any weight on it. I'm weak, and I don't think this is going to work.
Ready or not, she arrived in Philadelphia in January for the Olympic trials.
I went to Philadelphia, just no expectations. I let loose and just had fun.
And I think you really saw the joy of Michelle come through. She was just alive. She was like floating over the ice. She wasn't skating on the ice. She was floating. And you could tell she loved this program. You could tell it was just a part of her. And she brought the house down.
I think there's just a quality there of completeness and openness and welcomingness to her skating. And that's a quality I haven't seen too often.
It all came from the heart, and that was the one thing that everybody strives to do, is just to skate from the heart.
Michelle was on top of her sport again. Tara Lipinski finished a distant second. Michelle was heading for the Nagano Olympics as the odds-on favorite.
Well, I was glad that I had the time in between nationals and the Olympics to get myself prepared as best as I could. And I still had pain in my left foot and my stress fracture, and it didn't heal 100%.
The pressure on an Olympic favorite is enormous, but it was nothing compared to the pressure Michelle was putting on herself to realize her dream.
It was either win or die. And I had that mentality going into the Olympics, and I was like, I gotta win, I gotta win, I gotta win.
The Olympics are just so different. It's a very different competition, and the pressure is enormous. And going there as the favorite is even more so.
I remember her asking me questions about what it was like to win the Olympics. What was it like, and she never asked me that kind of stuff.
In Nagano, her focus was total. Michelle won the short program. Tara Lipinski was second. Michelle was one performance away from Olympic gold.
How could I describe the Olympics? You work and you visualize every single moment that you're going to be at the Olympics. And that day comes. It's just unbelievable. You step into the rink, and the first time I skated over the Olympic rings, I think I started crying. It's so emotional because you just, you visualize every second that you're there and you're skating and performing, and then here it is. It's like the stage is set.
My experience with Michelle at the Olympics are a very, very important thing to her, to the point that she almost tightens up when the time comes because she probably wants it so bad. I felt Michelle was tight that night before she took the ice.
She was nervous, but her willpower was astonishing. Under the greatest pressure of her young life, 17-year-old Michelle Kwan was simply perfect.
I just remember it coming off the ice. I was crying. I just was overwhelmed. And I guess the emotions that were going through my mind and my body was sense of release, sense of I tried so hard to be in the best shape of my life. Didn't make any mistakes. I did this. I did everything I possibly can. And it all happened.
Well, after she skated, I thought she won, thank God, she won. Whew, you know, like a big sigh of relief. Then Tara came on. Tara's moment happened to be that night as well. And it's almost like if you were to rewrite the history books, it's like two performances like that shouldn't have happened in one night. But they did.
It was a solid performance. She would have won a lot of other Olympics, and it'll be debated, you know, because they were both good performances. You know, but it was Tara's night. It was just a great rivalry that went Tara's way.
Everybody works hard. Everybody wants to win, but there's only one spot.
It was one of the more remarkable human efforts for Michelle Kwan to handle herself as she did in Nagano the moments after she had not won the gold and the press conference occurred. There she is, her eyes are still puffy from having cried, and Tara Lipinski is in this giddy dream world that you can only imagine. You know, this kid has just won the Olympic gold medal and no one can believe it. And she handled herself very well, Tara did. But the rivalry question came up very quickly. What do you two think of the other? And Tara giddily said, I didn't watch Michelle skate, but I know she did great. And, you know, Tara just gave it the answer you would expect from a teenager who's in some other world. And Michelle Kwan took the microphone and very quietly paused for a moment and then said, Tara, I like you.
Michelle called from Japan probably about 30 minutes after the results and everything. And I remember the sound of her voice, and gosh, that was so tough. I think that was probably one of the hardest moments that I have, because she wanted it so badly, and I know that she had skated her heart out.
Getting the silver was tough, because I thought, how could I do that? My dream was to win. My dream was to win the gold. Not the silver. I want to get the gold. And I just realized when I got silver, like, life is just as good winning the silver. It doesn't make me a better person if I had won the gold. It doesn't make me any different. It's just medal.
Ironically, finishing second at Nagano seemed to make Michelle Kwan even more popular with the public. The next month, Tara Lipinski retired, while Michelle went on to the 98 Worlds and captured her second world title. At only 17, another Olympic bid was physically possible. It was a question of motivation.
After the Olympics, I think it took a while for her to get back on her feet. It was just a very, very emotional time for her. It took her probably a year or two to start feeling like she could do it.
Michelle was a competitor at heart, and she would keep on competing. She would stay in for another 4 years, but she would do it on her own terms. So just months after Nagano, she made an unusual decision for a skating champion. She was going to go to college. She enrolled at UCLA in the fall of 1999.
I just decided I want to experience going to school, being in the dorms, just that whole atmosphere. And it was incredible because it made me realize, skating is so small. They just like, oh yeah, are you still competing? Are you still doing that kind of little thing, that little sport you're doing? And it put everything in perspective.
Michelle won the 1999 U.S. title and finished second at Worlds. But even that minor misstep led some in the skating world to question whether she still had a champion's medal. She would answer her critics at the 2000 Worlds in Nice.
I just remember the talk that, Michelle, she should just hang up her skates and turn professional. But I felt in my heart that I could still win. I had worked really, really hard, and just watching the tapes, I remember I had this look in my eyes, and just this like fierce, like look. It was actually not attractive, but I was like, just as if I was holding like I don't know, like an arrow or something that I was gonna toss. I was like, attack was my word.
She attacked again the next year in Vancouver, winning an incredible 4th world title and setting herself up for her 2nd Olympic bid. At 21, she would enter the Salt Lake City Olympics in her home country as the reigning world champion. Then, 4 months before Salt Lake, Kwan made a shocking announcement. After 10 years, she was leaving coach Frank Carroll and would compete at the Olympics without a coach.
We were having some difficulty, and we decided we weren't going to work anymore. I said to Michelle, but Michelle, I haven't changed. The way I teach, the technique I teach, and, my attitude about skating is the same. I haven't changed. And she said to me, no, you haven't changed, Frank. I've changed.
No one in skating had ever contemplated trying for an Olympic gold without a coach. It was an unprecedented move.
I think it was extremely hard to go through the Olympics without a coach. There's a feeling of security and solidness about having your coach there, doing every little detail. A coach is like another set of eyes looking at you. But if anybody could have done it without a coach, I would have put my money on Michelle. I wouldn't have put it on myself, but I would have put it on Michelle to be able to pull it off.
Michelle Kwan had decided to go to her 2nd Olympics without a coach. To have someone by her side, Michelle asked her father to stand at the boards for her in 2002, as he had done so many years ago, during that year when the Kwans could no longer afford a coach.
I just stand there, give her whatever she needs, and give her a bottle of water, calm her down. And that's my job here. That's all it is. And I think the last minute she mentioned, Dad, can you stand next to me? I said, sure.
It was a little bit scary, because I think that there was a lot of pressure on my dad. I could see it. Not that I'm sure he wanted to go out and skate for her, but, just standing there and going, okay, we've done these things for 15 years now. I've watched you skate. Now this is the Olympics. Okay, go out and skate.
At the Olympics, I had my dad there on the boards, and I had to put myself on the ice, but yet I had somebody standing there that loved me, and I trusted, and I had him by my side no matter what happened. And that was a great, secure feeling for me. And the only thing I had to worry about was going out there and skating. And that was very sacred for me. It was just me and the ice.
In the short program, Kwan skated magnificently, taking 1st place. For the 2nd time in her life, she had the lead, entering the Olympic finals.
The pressure to skate well is so high. My own expectations were so high. I skated the best short program. The long program, I just made a few mistakes. Just let it slip out of my hand just a little bit. And that little bit cost a lot.
I said, hey, hey, you did your best. I'm proud for you. I'm proud of you. That's what I told her.
Michelle ended up with the bronze medal. The next day, in the exhibition following the Olympics, she skated in a gold dress to the music Fields of Gold, a number she had planned in advance.
I've never seen her skate with such emotion. I found myself tearing up, as an older brother.
It was just perfect, but the only imperfection was she didn't have the gold medal.
The music came on, and I started crying during the performance. Like a minute into it, I had that feeling, and it was so amazing. I let myself feel that when I was skating, and felt the crowd behind me. I felt them saying, it's okay, you know, it's all right. You love skating. You've won a lot of medals. You've won the Worlds. Unfortunately, this is not your Olympics. And I don't know, I just felt like, why couldn't I release myself like that the night before?
In her 4 Olympic performances, Michelle Kwan had made exactly one mistake, and yet her Olympic dream remained unfulfilled. But surprisingly, the public didn't care if Michelle had won the gold or not.
The first night of the show in 2002, we opened in Dayton, Ohio, and you know, she won the bronze that year, and she came out, Michelle, and he announced her name, and she got a standing ovation. And she skated, and before she was finished again, the last minute, the people were on their feet. People just love her, just love her. The most loved skater probably in the history of figure skating.
You say to people on the street, name a figure skater, and I think very often they will tell you Michelle Kwan, even without Olympic gold medals. That's how popular she is. You cannot list the top 5 to 10 women athletes on Earth through the late 90s into the next century without mentioning Michelle Kwan's name.
After Salt Lake, Michelle could have easily gone pro and given up her grueling training regimen. But 1 year after her second Olympic heartbreak, she went back out to put it all on the line again at the 2003 World Championships.
She said, I still can do it. And I think I can win another one.
I think the Worlds after the Olympics really cemented her as a legend. That ability to come back, that ability to skate to that level when the chips are down, when she came out of such a traumatic Olympic year, I think that puts her in the history books.
I just ran down the ice doing my footwork, and I think the audience knew. The audience was with me and knew that I was just yeah! I was pretty much screaming with my arms up. Guess at the end of the day, when I'm done with skating and I look back, and to have a gold medal, that would be just perfect. I'm not sure if life could be that perfect in a career, in a skating career, because I'm so lucky as it is to win so many medals and to be at the Olympics and to get a silver and a bronze. But it would just complete the package. I mean, I've got a silver and I've got a bronze. All I'm missing right there is just a little gold medal.
With or without Olympic gold, Michelle Kwan is already one of her sport's greatest champions. The daughter of Chinese immigrants from Torrance, California, has realized her dreams, collecting dozens of titles along the way, and securing a special place in skating history.
I absolutely see her soul when she skates, and I think everybody in the building feels that, because she just has it. It's something you can't teach.
There's something really special that sometimes happens to her. It's almost like the music's channeled through her sometimes. And all of a sudden the music comes on, and that's what makes her move. And the look on her face of the music and the way she does it is just, it makes you float away with her.